Hey, Tactical 40K. Now, we've had those updates. So, what we've seen from GW, what they're doing to make you or give you an incentive to run um, Codex compliant Space Marines is one, your characters give a certain unit a +1 objective control. Two, they give you the special oath. So if you are a Codex compliant Space Marine chapter, you get +1 to wound on your oath target. That brings us to a certain question here is like, what's the most effective way to run that? Well, that's once again Ultramarines. And that's because you can run various units to give you, they're like the Swiss Army knives. I'll just put it that way. And if you run their Primarch G-Man, you're going to get double oath. Um, and that brings up a whole lot of other synergies that come with that. Now, for me, I look at this as a good way to develop a very efficient combined arms army. Now, I did see. Now let's step away from the Ultramarines. I did see one guy running Raven Guard and another Imperial Fist army. One guy with Raven Guard army won a tournament, and then the Imperial Fist guy, they might have won a tournament or they placed pretty high. Um, but anyway, if I'm taking something to a tournament, unless sometimes I really want to take my Raven Guard, because I like the lore. I hopefully the rumors are correct. We're going to get another unit or a character later on to supplement Shrike Daddy. So. But I just love the Raven Guard in general, or maybe we might even get a Primarch down the line. But anyway, supposedly there's another unit that's coming out. Okay, that's another topic. Ultramarines are the way to run um, this new oath, and no, change from what it was beforehand, right? Ooh, I got a little guy here that's out of place. Anyway, so no real change from where it was prior, but it does make your other Codex compliant Space Marines a little more competitive. But I wanted to talk more about Combined Arms Army. So I got all my guys here finally all laid out in some semblance of formation. I don't know. So Combined Arms Army, don't mind the fishing tackle, but Combined Arms Armies are stuff that allow you to do multiple strengths, I guess you'd say. So like an example would be indirect fire assets prepping the battlefield before your infantry assets come up and take various areas, and then having fire support systems in place that supplement those infantry or your foot soldiers, the guys that are actually getting on there, they're scoring the points. For Ultramarines, we've got a number of units here. Now, combined arms. So for me, I like having indirect fire in a combined arms army. There's a couple of my armies I don't have that because it's just not available. Or I guess I'm talking about Custodes in particular. So you run a semi-modified combined arms army. So in this list, I would have come to be successful so far in my Ultramarine stuff is running a couple of whirlwinds, which give you the indirect fire that can touch anywhere on the board. Plus, if it's an oath target, you're getting the +1 to wound. Don't mind, a lot of these are not painted up to tournament standard, like 3 colors maybe. Some of them are primed. Anyway, so you have these. What does that also do, having an indirect fire thing? Something to touch units anywhere on the board, no matter what they're doing, unless they're lone op or something like that. Well, what it does is it forces your enemy, it interdicts your enemy's plans. It makes him react to you as opposed to you reacting to him. He thinks he can just keep these guys over here safe. You're interacting with them without even being on that side of the board. What does that also make him do? It makes him adjust his plans. It makes him move. It makes him put his place in potentially vulnerable areas. You couple that with a guy like here, old Calgar, the Great. This guy inherently, so whatever detachment you end up running with your Codex compliant Space Marines, your Ultramarines, whether that's Vanguard, which I like, or whether that's Gladius, this guy already gives you advance and charge and advance and shoot and all that jazz. So whatever unit he is with, which is going to be a heavy hitter unit, maybe with these aggressor guys over here, or some people running them with the Blade Guard veterans. I like the aggressor brick, and then with the Biologus, for lethal hits, and then you get some good melee, you get some mass amount of shooting, and you with these guys here allowing him to get a forward feel no pain, you can start allocating wounds, in various ways to increase their survivability, it's pretty bomb. So these guys have the ability, especially in Vanguard too, you can put them in the middle of the board, you can stage them and get them interacting with an enemy. One, you can pull your enemy out with your indirect fire, or you're prepping the battlefield, you're causing the enemy, you're getting in a Zoom loop, you're causing them to react. And then you have a power unit that can interact with them when they do pull out, or if they want to sit there, then you come and you really disrupt plans. So you're just getting in an enemy's head, we call it the OODA loop. You're causing him to react to your plan as opposed to you reacting to him. The other part of a combined arms army is, fire support systems, and you can do that from various ways. You can have somebody like these Centurion Devastators with las cannons. I love those guys, especially if you have a guy like Ventress, who not only is he cool, we'll get to him in just a second, but he can give a unit deep strike. Or you go to these tanks, you can even do both, like 2 Vindicators. It's hard to go wrong with those. You might, with points wise, go with some Lancers. And even in some lists, you got the Repulsor Executioner. I tend to lean toward the Vindicators. I have all 10th edition, and then I've had times where I've ran the 2 Lancers. Both are effective. I tend to lean towards the Vindicators in particular. Granted, you sacrifice some range and maybe a reroll, but with the right support, you're putting in a mass amount of shots with D6 damage. It's hard to beat them. And you might even, like for me, sometimes I keep one of these guys off in reserve, bring them in the right angles. That's what your Centurion Devastators end up becoming if they give them deep strike. But anyway, so you go on there. You also have another element that's going to be like a supporting element, another hard-hitting unit that's going to complement your primary, what I call them, your main element, which is your Calgar unit. And that's a Ventress unit. So Ventress can attach to a number of units. I like to attach them to a Blade Guard unit, maybe an Intercessor unit, just depending on the points stack up. Ventress's new rule, not only does it give somebody deep strike, but this guy here, he also has a Vector. So putting him with a unit, and then maybe you give them Blade Driven Deep, since they don't have Advance in Charge. And you also attach a Lieutenant here, so they got lethal hits. So this turns into kind of a beast melee unit. But you get him in the middle of the board. He's vecting. He's got a Vector there. You stage him in the right spot. You supplement. You bring up Calgar, your main element, and he kind of makes them even more beefy, because you get that. If he interacts with somebody in mid board, then you're vecting them as well. So you have these 2 elements. The other elements we have in this army is we need scoring units. And scoring units come in a very wide array now, and especially with changes to like the Reavers, which I like the Reavers now, which is also another thing. You can put deep strike around the board in like a Vanguard, and they can now force battle shocks not only, but they also -1 objective control. You also have guys like Infiltrators, which you have anti-deep strike 12 inches. I love that. You put that in there, it forces it. It puts another barrier in front of your other assets, like your Whirlwinds. So one of the ways an enemy can interdict you and disrupt your plan, change the OODA loop game, is to rapid ingress somebody and start interacting with your Whirlwinds. If you put an Infiltrator squad in the right spot, not only can they score you points late game, but if you put them in the right spot, they're going to give you another turn or 2 with your Whirlwinds before anything can really affect them. But you also have Intercessors here, which are sticky objectives. They're a battle line unit. They can run around. You have Incursors, which Incursors give you some other hit benefits. You have Scouts, which you have they scout and infiltrate, do all kinds of jazz. They up you downy. They're good scoring units. So are Eliminators as well, and they can provide some shooting access. And then you also have your Assassins. Now we get over to the officer side of things, and these are scoring units as well. So you have like a Lieutenant with combi weapon. These guys will see. Will you focus? No, you will not focus. Anyway, a Lieutenant with combi weapon amongst your other Phobos units that you can utilize for scoring. Not only is he lone up, but he gives you another. I believe it's either reroll wound rolls of 1 on an objective. So not only can you have a +1 to wound, you can have a reroll wound rolls of 1. There's other ways of getting +1 to wound. You can give this army some really awesome things. But anyway, so he's a scoring unit because you can put him up the board. If you've got Vanguard, you can sabotage an objective or whatever. He's got a reactive move. Vanguard itself has reactive move and uppy downy. So that's some interesting things. You also can use jump pack intercessors. They're pretty cheap and they can hard hit. Shrike can attach to them if you happen to go that route. Otherwise, you can just run them as a unit or put a captain in there, or what's in vogue. Not too many people. Here's my Kit Bash Chaplain. Put him there. He's got a +1 to wound. Now you got +1 to wound all over the place. But you could use that unit more as a scoring unit and maybe throw some mortals, take out some flak. But you run some of these Phobos units and then maybe, you know, some assassin or whatever points allow. And now you got, you know, you got a good swath of units that are going to interact with the enemy, that are going to close with and destroy the enemy. They're going to cause him to make moves, and then you got scoring units. And then if you have points wise, intercessors are still good for scoring, especially in a Vanguard unit. You move in at 10, they up you down in deep strike, you still throw them in within 6 inches. They're a little cheaper now, but you pop them up and down, you get them in there with some plasma. I mean, they're good. So you can with this list, I just gave you the baseline. I don't know what the points total is on it. I've built one. I'm trying to think of if I forgot any of these other units that I have in there. But in general, you don't have that many units because you got beefcake units and then you got other units to supplement them, and then a couple units for scoring. But you have enough units to get the job done. The other thing is your enemy might have, like, let's say, indirect fire, and he might try to take out some of your scoring elements, but you got a guy like your librarian. He's pretty cheap. You can attach him to Phobos units in general, and he gives them loan up. So you can protect your scoring units a little bit that way. So you're just trying to mitigate as much risk as possible while getting in the enemy's head. I've also experimented with running Terminator bricks, both regular and assault. Those are good too. Those are like a beefcake unit. So if you're running just like a Shrike, let's say you don't run Ultramarines and you go Shrike, and I like to run the Terminator brick because that becomes your Calgar unit, and then your supplemental Ventress unit becomes basically a Calidus, and then your Shrike and some maybe either your Vanguard Vets or your jump pack intercessors. And then he's more Shrike, like I've done the whole time. In 10th, he's more of a scoring unit to begin with, but he can supplement and do a little bit of damage, especially with +1 to wound. But I think that's all I wanted to talk about this video. We're just talking about building that combined arms list, interacting with this new oath of moment for these chapter specific or chapter compliant Space Marines, and you know, doing things that are doctrinally acceptable in the military, how I was taught, and that are applicable on the tabletop. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, talk to you later. Peace.